to Sustainable Teacher. If it is your first time here, my name is Leticia and I'm glad to meet you. And if you've been here before, I'm happy to see you again. In today's video, we are going to start a new unit about the function of nutrition in human beings. And today, specifically, we will talk about the digestive system, the anatomy and how it works. So, if this video sounds interesting to you, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. For the following units, we will be talking about the three main functions of living beings, specifically the three main functions of human beings. The first function is going to be nutrition, and today we will focus on the first system involved in the nutrition function, which is the digestive system. First, we will talk a little bit about the anatomy of the digestive system, and then we will talk about the physiology, so that means how it works. The digestive system is in charge of digesting the food we take, the food we eat, okay, to take and absorb from it the nutrients. It is formed by the digestive tract, starting in the mouth, finishing in the anus, and all the digestive glands which are associated to the digestive system. And it is really interesting that the interior of the digestive tract, the digestive tube, is considered external. So all the glands that will excrete substances to the digestive tube are external glands, exocrine glands, because in the end all the tube is connected with the external air or external area of our body, okay? That's why it's not like inside the body, like the blood inside the veins or the vessels, okay? And which type of glands do we have? We have the salivary glands for the saliva, the liver and the pancreas, some gastric glands in the stomach, and the intestinal glands in the intestines, okay? So now let's see each part one by one. The first part we will find is the mouth. The mouth has the teeth, which are involved in the mechanical digestion of the food. Then the tongue, that will also help doing this mechanical digestion and swallowing, okay, the food. And of course the salivary glands will start the chemical digestion, and specifically the saliva, you will see it later, will digest carbohydrates. After the mouth, the food, the next step in this tube is gonna be the pharynx, and there is like a door called epiglottis, which is the door that won't allow food to go to the respiratory tract, because the pharynx is shared between the digestive tube and the respiratory tube. So food shouldn't get to the respiratory tract, so there is the epiglottis, the door that will close that part of the tube to avoid this. When we have some problems regulating our epiglottis, usually we will go to avoid food getting inside our respiratory tract. After the pharynx, we have the esophagus, okay, which is the tube between the pharynx and the stomach. After we get to the stomach, there are two valves in the stomach, like two doors closing the stomach, one above and one after the stomach. The one above is called cardia, and the one below in the end of the stomach is called pylorus, okay? Another name for this, apart from valves, could be sphincters. And finally we have the small intestine and the large intestine. The small intestine and the large intestine are divided each one into three parts, depending on the processes happening there. The small intestine is divided in duodenum, jejunum and ileum. And apart from this, it's very interesting that all the internal walls of the small intestine will be won't be flat. It has like hair or really big and thin mountains, which are called villi. And the objective of this is to have more surface to absorb nutrients, because the nutrients will be absorbed in the intestine. And likewise, we have three parts in the large intestine, which are the cecum, the colon, and the rectum before the anus. And next to the cecum, we have the appendix. Cecum means in Latin like blind. So it's like a closed tube. It doesn't have one exit, one entrance and one exit. There is one part which is closed, that is blind in this sense. And there we have the appendix. Some people has the appendicitis and they have to get it operated, okay, in surgery, because it can cause really severe inflammation and infections, okay. But even in the past they said the appendix doesn't have a real function. Now we know that it's related with the microbiome inside our intestine. We will talk about the microbiome in a little bit, okay? And what about the glands? So we have the salivary glands that excrete saliva. We have three types depending on where they are located, okay? If they are located in the sides, in the walls, they are called parotid. If they are under the tongue, they are called sublingual, and if they are under the jaw, they are called submandibular. If you think about the translation of lateral wall, the tongue and the jaw in Spanish, it's gonna be easier to remember this name because they are like parotid, sublingual, submandibular, okay? Then we have the liver and the gallbladder that will excrete some substances that will go to the small intestine, as well as the pancreas, okay? The pancreas will also secrete or excrete substances that will help with the digestion, the chemical digestion of specifically lipids and some carbohydrates. And proteins, I haven't said proteins yet, they are mainly digested in the stomach, so it's the gastric glands that will be in charge of starting digesting these proteins in the stomach. And finally, in any case, all the nutrients will be digested in the end in the small intestine, with the intestinal glands that will finish the work that has been done before. I am advancing a little bit about the process, the physiology of how the digestion works. Let's see it step by step, little by little. So the digestion is the process of taking the nutrients from the food, okay? There are two main processes in digestion. One is the mechanical process and one is the chemical process. The mechanical process is just a physical breakdown, a physical breakage of the food in smaller pieces, because this way it's gonna be easier to digest it chemically. The mechanical digestion will start in the mouth when we chew the food, but during all the digestive tract we have muscles that will move the mass of food during all the process, okay? And then we have the chemical digestion. In this case, we will have some proteins that act as digestive enzymes that will break the chemical bonds to go from complex molecules to simpler molecules, okay? We will see in a few slides where each nutrient is digested, okay? And after breaking physically and chemically the food into nutrients, we will absorb them to go to the circulatory system, that we will talk about this in 2 videos, okay? The process of absorption happens both in the small intestine and in the large intestine. We will see what can we absorb in each intestine in a few slides also. And finally, when we can't get any more nutrients from the food, we have the defecation process. Remember that this is not made by the excretory system, which are the kidneys. This is just urine, and the defecation is feces, and it's done by the digestive system, even if we can consider this a type of excretion, but not performed by the excretory system, but the digestive system. So specifically in the mechanical digestion, we have two main processes: the chewing with the insalivation in the mouth to form a ball, we call it the bolus, and the bolus is just a mass of food that we will swallow, and it will go through all the digestive tract. After swallowing, all the movements are involuntary. Even swallowing, it is somehow a voluntary movement. We can decide when we swallow and when we don't, but it sometimes could be involuntary or like a reflex act. So after swallowing, all the process of moving the food inside the bolus, inside the digestive tract, is involuntary. We can't control if our muscles move or not. So it's smooth muscle. Do you remember this from the unit 1 or 2, with the tissues, right? And the movements that will impulse the food through the digestive tract are called peristaltic movements. Let's go now with the digestion. Which substances are secreted in each location. So the salivary glands in the mouth will secrete saliva. In the stomach, gastric juice is called, okay? The secretion is called gastric juice from the gastric glands. And in the small intestine, we will have the intestinal juice produced by the intestinal glands, and the bile from the liver and the gallbladder, and the pancreatic juice from the pancreas. What these substances have? So the saliva is made of water and enzymes that will digest specifically the carbohydrates, okay? The gastric juice will have enzymes that work in an acid environment, specifically in the environment of hydrochloric acid. Okay, so these enzymes will digest the proteins, specifically in the stomach, in a very high, with an environment with a very high acidity. And finally, in the small intestine, we have intestinal and pancreatic enzymes that are able to finish digesting. On the one hand, the intestinal juice will finish digesting the proteins from the stomach and the carbohydrates from the mouth that started being digested there. And then, for the lipids, we have two processes. On the one hand, the pancreatic juice that will divide lipids in smaller types of lipids, and the bile that will emulsify lipids to finish digesting them. Okay, so they mix them in the end. So are carbohydrates digested in the mouth? Yes, but partially, not totally. They are not digested at all in the stomach, and they will finish the digestion in the small intestine. What about lipids? They are not digested, not even in the mouth, not even in the stomach. They will be start and finish to be digested in the small intestine. Okay, and the proteins, they are partially digested in the stomach, never in the mouth, and they will be finished. The digestion will be finished in the small intestine. So what do we have in the end? From the carbohydrates, we will have small carbohydrates like glucose, like sugars, which is what our cells like. Then from the lipids, we will have simple lipids called fatty acids, okay, that our cells also like. And from the proteins, we will get the amino acids, which are the units from the proteins, okay. So that are the ending results of the chemical digestion. What happens with the nutrient absorption? That's why I didn't talk about the large intestine before. All the nutrients mainly will be absorbed in the small intestine, okay? Like protein, carbohydrates and lipid, after finishing digesting them usually in the duodenum, will be absorbed in the other part of the small intestine. And mineral salts also. Okay, so we have talked about the biomolecules and the mineral salts. What happens with other mineral salts? With some fiber and with the water. It will be absorbed in the large intestine. Water is gonna be mainly absorbed before defecation in the large intestine. And other nutrients depend on the bacteria that are living in symbiosis inside our body, specifically in the large intestine. This is now our intestinal flora, or it's also called the microbiome. There are some beneficial bacteria for us that are able to digest and absorb for us nutrients that if not, we couldn't digest, like some vitamins. And this will only happen in the large intestine. After absorbing all the nutrients, organic and inorganic nutrients, and the water, the only process that we lack to finish the digestion is defecation. And this way the process finishes, and this video finishes as well, okay? So if you have any doubt, please leave it in the comments, and of course, see you soon.